While Shanghai shares hit an 18-month high, the listing market of choice for Chinese mainland companies is still Hong Kong. Yet, as domestic ventures consider their offshore IPOs, the number of multinationals transferring their regional headquarters to Shanghai is growing. Do you agree there is actually competition between Hong Kong and Shanghai, and how do you view this competition?
First of all, there's bound to be a degree of competition between any two big cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai, and indeed with Beijing, both of us with Beijing as well. But also we have a very complementary relationship. After all, Hong Kong is the biggest investor in Shanghai, and the mainland is the biggest investor in Hong Kong. So I don't worry about it. I think a certain degree of competition is healthy for both of us. It keeps both of us sharp, both of us business friendly, and frankly, China's such a big country. There's more than enough for both of us to do.
Now, more specifically, what are the respective advantages of both Hong Kong and Shanghai?
Hong Kong is quite naturally China's international financial center. It's very simply, our stock market has raised over 140 billion US dollars for mainland companies in the last dozen years in IPOs. And the pace of that is increasing. The queue of mainland companies waiting to list in Hong Kong grows longer. It doesn't matter how many more come to market, they're always replaced by even more on the waiting list. To be an international financial center, you must have absolute free flow of information. You must have a freely convertible currency with no restrictions on the movement in and out of capital. You must have private ownership of the banking system so that the government's role is purely to be a regulator. And you must have a legal system built on internationally acceptable principles based on the rule of law and administered by an independent judiciary. These four features Hong Kong has in common with New York and London and every other city in the world which is or aspires to be an international financial center. But there's still a very important role in the size of an economy like China's for domestic financial centers. And that role obviously is being fulfilled at the moment by Shanghai and Shenzhen.
What are some of the advantages that Shanghai has that can be complementary to Hong Kong?
Well, I think it has advantages certainly in terms of its location for the Yangtze River Delta, just as Hong Kong is a natural jumping off point for the Pearl River Delta. And we come back to this. I mean, the greater Pearl River Delta has a population of something like 450 million. The Yangtze River Delta, if you go all the way up, again, is 450 odd million people. So that's the size of a continent.
In terms of attracting investment, how has the strength or competitive advantages of Hong Kong changed over the past few years? Or do you think it has changed?
What has changed is that we've become a much more service-oriented economy. Service sector is now 90% of GDP. And I don't think you'll find another advanced economy anywhere in the world where the percentage is as high as 90%. The manufacturing is now barely 5% and it's declining. Now, what you're getting in Hong Kong is high-end R&D activities. But there are over 40 IC design companies in Hong Kong. 5 years ago we had one. So what you're getting is much less manufacturing in terms of its total size, but the high value added parts of the manufacturing process, especially where the intellectual property needs protecting, because Hong Kong's legal system protects IP with a combination of criminal and civil law.
What about some recent regulations and arrangement, for example, CEPA? How has that affected the investment environment in Hong Kong?
I think it's the part that's got most of the publicity is the trade in goods, but I think actually much more significant are the trade in services and also the trade and investment facilitation. The reason that the trade in goods gets all the publicity is because it's easy to understand, whereas the other two are more complex. It might need quite a long explanation. Last year, of our clients, well over 20% named CEPA as a factor in their decision to set up in Hong Kong. So that although only a relatively small number said it was the reason they set up in Hong Kong, and the key thing, you see, and this is unique, that this is a thing that CEPA has that most free trade agreements don't have, the privileges extend irrespective of the ownership of the company. So that a foreign-owned company based in Hong Kong enjoys the same privileges as a Hong Kong company.
Well, we all know that Hong Kong is a well-established metropolis with a mature financial system and a good investment or business environment. But on the other hand, some people feel it lacks room for future growth. So first of all, do you agree? And how do you think we can take Hong Kong to the next level of prosperity?
Well, if you take Hong Kong as just that part from Hong Kong Island up to the Shenzhen River, then by definition it must have limited room for growth. I think what you're going to see, and you're going to see this in Hong Kong and Shanghai and Beijing, is growing specialization. That is to say, each of those, the three key business centers of China, will develop areas which it does better than anybody else. Beijing will be the ones which require a lot of central government input. Shanghai will be those which which are attractive to certain industries, and the Pearl River Delta will be attractive to certain other industries, and Hong Kong will come more and more and more into services. So that I see financial services and logistics management. You see, people talk to me about the port of Hong Kong and say, last year Singapore overtook you in terms of the number of TEUs. Yes, we did. But I tell them in 5 years' time Shanghai will overtake Singapore, and in 10 years' time Shenzhen will overtake Shanghai. And who owns and manages those container terminals in Shenzhen and Shanghai? Hong Kong companies. So let's get on with economic development, shall we? I don't see a limit to Hong Kong's economic development. I see it becoming much more focused even than it is now.
Michael Rouse believes China's economy is so vast that it is appropriate to have more than one financial center.